Welcome to Voices of the Community, which explores critical issues facing Northern California communities. We introduce you to the voices of community thought leaders and change makers who are working on solutions that face our fellow individual community members, neighborhoods, cities, and our region. This is George Koster, your host. This episode is part of our series exploring COVID-19's impact on nonprofits and small businesses in the San Francisco Bay Area. Back in April of 2020, when we decided to create this ongoing series on COVID-19's impact, first on nonprofits and then on small businesses in the San Francisco Bay Area, we, like you, had no idea how long the pandemic would go on and what the health and economic impact would be in our community. With vaccinations increasing, COVID-19 cases and deaths decreasing, we're now moving into the summer of 2021 with the reopening of the economy and all of the uncertainty of our ever-changing indoor and outdoor, vaccinated and unvaccinated protocols, and the politics that will drive how we all come back together as a unified or fractured community. We will continue to shine a spotlight on the nonprofits and small businesses that make up the fabric of our community, along with the founders and staff who are struggling to deal with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on their operations, services, and sustainability until we can all get to the other side of the pandemic. Along the way, we will also share with you all the amazing solutions that our nonprofits, small businesses, foundations, and government leaders are working on to help us all get to the other side of the pandemic and come together to rebuild our communities with more economic, social, and environmental equality.
But it all has to do with really Jen's ability to connect me with the things that I needed in my life. My daughter, some comfort or confidence in knowing that it'll be okay, whether it be health-wise or whether it be housing-wise. The confidence that I got there. And then the guidance. I wanted to do it right. And without Jen, I wouldn't have been able to have done it the right way. And without Miracle Money, I wouldn't have been able to have the resources to do it the right way. So here I am.
I'm joined remotely by the founder and CEO of Miracle Messages, Kevin Adler, and Miracle Messages Friend Program volunteer, Jen Roy, along with Miracle Money Program participant, Ray. Thanks for being here, Kevin, Jen, and Ray. So why don't we start with Jen introducing herself?
Hi, my name is Jen, and I just turned 50. Ray, you're next. And at the moment I did that, I also just ended my full-time job as a campus minister at St. Ignatius College Prep, which is a Catholic Jesuit high school in San Francisco, to focus on my dreams of becoming a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so I'm beginning year 2 of a 3-year Master's of Counseling Psychology program at Dominican University of California in San Rafael. And I really just ended my 25-year career in education, both in higher and secondary ed, to go back to graduate school to begin my new career as a therapist. So I live in Novato and I grew up in Marin County, but I have been living in the Pacific Northwest for college and Colorado for grad school, and then worked up at Chico, California, and then was in Boston most recently before moving back to the Bay Area. And I've been back to the Bay Area for about 7 years now. And I live with a wonderful husband and an awesome dog and cat. That's me.
Thank you. And turning to you, Ray.
My name is Ray. I'm 49 years old. And as Jen mentioned, I guess I'm next to 50 in a few months. I'm a San Francisco Bay Area native until recently, though, with the help of Miracle Messages and Friends and Kevin and Jen. I moved. I'm now in the Midwest and enjoying a new life. And along with that new life comes new goals. And really, the main goal is really to give back a lot of the blessings that I've received from many people in San Francisco before, during, and after I've joined Miracle Friends. And that's just to give back to people who are in need here. So as soon as I'm a little bit more settled here, I plan to actually go for a position with the county agencies, maybe the human services agencies here, and see what I can do to help. It's a big transition. My background is in sales, and I love sales. But after you get the good feeling of being helped by other people, you kind of just want to give that back. So that's my new goal here in the Midwest.
Thank you. And Kevin, turning to you.
So my name is Kevin Adler. I'm the founder and CEO of Miracle Messages. I've been the head of Miracle Messages now since I started it about 7 years ago almost. And it's really been the joy of my professional life to help hundreds, if not thousands of our unhoused neighbors rebuild their social support systems and financial security. And prior to Miracle Messages, I've worked in the education space, always kind of been a social entrepreneur, and have a real passion for seeing our neighbors not as problems to be solved, but people to be loved. I had an uncle who was homeless for 30 years and suffered from schizophrenia, but never looked at him as a homeless man because he was my beloved family member. And my mom and my dad both taught me that some people may have less, some people may have more financially, but everyone is intrinsically valuable and everyone's interconnected. And so I try to treat people that way. And anywhere where people are not treated that way, I get really eager to try to do something about it, and have had the blessing of doing work around homelessness now as, to me, one of the human rights crises of our time. So it's good to be here with you, George.
Thank you. And Kevin, staying with you, why did Miracle Messages create the Miracle Money pilot program?
Well, my design philosophy, which is an odd way to answer a very simple question, but my design philosophy is to follow what is called desire pathways or natural pathways, which is basically you think of a field and you think of there's the road on one side and on the other side of the field, but then people cut through the middle of that field to try to get from point A to point B. And I believe it's less about creating something from nothing, and it's more about finding what people already want to do and how people already want to walk and how people already want to support, and then enabling that. And so back in November, we had the Miracle Friends Phone Buddy program up and going, have over 100 matches between unhoused friends and volunteers for weekly phone calls and text messages. And we started sharing stories of those individuals on social media. And one by one, every story would usually elicit comments like, hey, I'm really moved by Ray's story. I'm really moved by Elizabeth's story. I'm really moved by this person and their connection. I'm not in that friendship, but can I make a donation directly to that person and help them out? Would that be beneficial? So at Giving Tuesday last 2020, we decided to just dedicate our Giving Tuesday to try to raise as much money as we could give to start a direct cash transfer pilot for our unhoused friends in the Miracle Friends program. We knew that it would be successful if we raised the money. There's been UBI pilots around homelessness in Canada that have gone exceptionally well, and it's increasingly of interest in the United States. And we were just blown away. I knew that if we were successful in raising the funds for the Miracle Money program, that our unhoused friends would use the money wisely and use it for needs from housing, food security, transportation. And so put out the campaign in early December and set an initial goal of $15,000 to try to raise $500 a month for 6 months for 5 individuals that are experiencing homelessness. We ended up raising over $40,000 in just 24-hour period, and then was able to dedicate my birthday a few months later to raise another $10,000 so that we could bring in an initial cohort of 15 individuals and give $500 a month in a guaranteed income for our unhoused friends.
And Kevin, staying with you, how are members of Miracle Money chosen, and then how are the funds distributed?
Yeah, I mean, a question that we get a lot is how people are selected. And then kind of the question behind the question sometimes is, well, how do you make sure people are using the funds for good purposes and not substances? And just to directly address both of those, we're very relational in our lives. The friendships we have, those work networks we have, so much of what we do every day is based on the trust that we built with other people. It allows us to get jobs, to make recommendations, to show up at parties that we're invited to. And yet what we call relational poverty and social capital is often not present within the homelessness community. Who are these people? Do we know them? We don't even know their story. What happens if they are dangerous? What happens if they're untrustworthy? So what we've developed is a buddy program where our housed volunteers, their friends, to say they're in a great spot to receive Miracle Money. We believe that they're in a great spot in their life. I vouch for them. I give them my stamp of approval. And it's not a perfect system. Sometimes people may not get along and things happen. But from our 120 or so participants in the Miracle Friends program, 70 of those individuals were nominated by their volunteer friends for the Miracle Money pilot. And of those 70, we then selected 15 of those individuals to receive it. This is more competitive than most elite universities, right? And so then it's just walking with people through their journey and being open and honest. I stumble, I make mistakes. There's things I probably spent money on that I shouldn't. We don't hold our friends to any lower or higher standard. So we just make sure that the relational piece is there every week and that we set goals and then we work together to achieve those goals. And we found pretty universally that our Miracle Money recipients have used the funds and invested the funds in ways that not only make sense, but are better than anything I could have envisioned for what the person needed. There's no way I would have known that someone like Mark Drake would need a service dog to help him out through the day. I would never have known that Muhammad needs a blender because he can't eat solid foods. And he also needs pants and a shirt so he can feel good about himself when he goes to mosque on a Friday evening. So it's just stories like that over and over again of seeing our unhoused friends using their Miracle Money funds for really thoughtful reasons. And Ray is a perfect example of that.
That brings us to you, Jen. You're one of the Miracle Message friends. Why did you apply?
I've always volunteered my whole life. It's something that's been really important to me. And specifically with nonprofits that support those that are unhoused has been a real kind of volunteer niche and belief for me. And I think probably has to do with growing up in San Francisco and really being hyper aware of our unhoused populations in the city and how we were addressing it. So it's a population I've always gravitated to. So most recently, I was volunteering at a nonprofit in the Tenderloin neighborhood of San Francisco for a nonprofit called Care Through Touch that offers healing touch and seated chair massage for those that are living on the streets or in a shelter or in an elderly assisted living program. And so I'm one of the volunteers who actually goes out and gives massage. And it's really been an incredible opportunity. But obviously, when COVID happened, we had to stop doing our volunteer work and not knowing how long it would be before we would be able to go do that again. And we actually still haven't begun doing it yet. So I was looking for another way to support the unhoused populations that I was used to serving and came across a newspaper article, I think it was in the Chronicle, about Miracle Friends and the program that they were starting, and was very aware of what San Francisco was doing to provide housing to people who normally wouldn't be housed in the midst of the pandemic and moving people into hotels to keep them safe. But I knew how lonely and isolating that could be. So that was already on my mind and my heart as I was hearing these news stories. So when I read the article about Miracle Friends, that's perfect. Like, I can do that. I can companion somebody who feels alone and isolated in a hotel room. It's a safe way to volunteer because it's all done remotely. And I was really missing interacting with the unhoused population. So I knew I'd serve a need, but I also needed myself to be in a relationship with somebody. I was feeling really lost in the midst of the pandemic from that. So I filled out the application online and sent it in, and someone got back to me fairly quickly and said, go through this volunteer training. It's not very long, and then we'll match you with somebody. And so my first match actually was somebody who I could not reach and was in touch with my support person from Miracle Friends about that fact. So they ended up switching me, rematching me to Ray. And I'll talk a little bit more about what our relationship has been like. I signed up to volunteer a year ago now. So it was last July. And then Ray and I got matched in, I think it was late September, early October.
And what's the experience been like to be a friend with Ray?
Yeah, it's been profound. It's been incredible. I feel like Ray gives me even more than I could ever give him in our friendship.
Wow.
I think all of us felt very alone and isolated during the pandemic. So Ray was kind of a constant in my life, a real grounding rock for me, of someone who I could check in with. he has been wonderful about asking me how I'm doing, supporting me through my transitions of my job and then going into grad school. Ray is really an equal. He's so compassionate and caring. And we have so many things that we share in common, similar values, similar outlooks on life. So to really walk what this last year has been together in the pandemic has been incredible. But Ray's resilience in being unhoused in the midst of a global pandemic and really figuring out how to manage some of the health issues that he was dealing with. He was a real example to me of resilience and strength in the midst of a really hard time. And I probably wouldn't have done as well through the pandemic if it wasn't for Ray. So he's really given me so much. And we just laugh and we give each other a hard time and we remind each other of what's important when one of us forgets about self-care or one of us forgets about how to focus on what's really important. We're really good reminders for each other of that. So yeah, Ray's been an exceptional friend for me.
So to Kevin's point, as a friend, why did you nominate Ray for a Miracle Money Scholarship?
So I was struck by Ray's sensitivity and generosity to others that he was living amongst. So he was in a hotel with many other people that were also a part of the county programs. And the things that he was doing to help other people that were struggling was just amazing. So his generosity was really profound for me. And within a month or two of our friendship, he was talking about his daughter a lot and said his daughter was a high school student. And he knew that I worked at a high school, but we started talking a little bit more about his daughter. And I just really admired how much of a father he wanted to be to her, even with his living circumstances not being exactly what he wanted. He really wanted to be a part of her life and provide for her as any father would want to provide for their daughter. And she was applying for colleges. And one time in our conversation, he said, "Oh, she got into a college. It's a good Jesuit school, just like the high school she goes to." I said, "Ray, wait a second. I work at a Jesuit high school. What high school does she go to?" Figured out that the high school I work at was the high school she was going to. And I totally knew her. She's one of my favorite students. So my mind was blown. And we started talking about, Ray, how are you going to be able to support her going to college? And he was saying in her last year in high school, I just really want to provide for her a home that I can welcome her in and cook her meals in. And just everything was about how can I be the best father to my daughter, even with the circumstances, what they are. And between his generosity for the people who were living amongst him, who were also unhoused, between his love and wanting to be the best father he could be for his daughter, I couldn't think of a better person to nominate to have him be able to help her and provide for her in ways that she deserves and he deserves to be able to provide for her. At the same time, he was also dealing with some health stuff. So I also wanted him to be able to focus more on that. He was working so hard doing COVID testing and then COVID vaccines to make ends meet. And I wanted him to also not feel that pressure to have to put his health aside to work hard to provide her what she needs. So there's many good reasons why I nominated him. I mean, it's who Ray is, and he's just an incredible human being, but also his role as a father and then him prioritizing his health would give him a little bit of breathing room to do that with this money.
Thank you, Jen. That was great. So Ray, turning to you, and please feel free to edit out whatever feels uncomfortable in this question, but could you share with the audience a little bit about what it was like before you received the Miracle Money funds and then how the funding has helped change your pathway?
Absolutely. And George, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to go even a little bit further back than that, because I think being unhoused, one of the benefits of, it's weird to say this, but one of the benefits that the pandemic provided for me was temporary housing. And so being put into a hotel, but you never really realize, or I didn't realize at least until I was in a room by myself, how important your mental state is. Jen hit it right on. She says that being alone, being isolated from people, you start thinking, I mean, if you're unhoused and you're out in the streets, you're thinking negative already, but being alone in a room, being isolated from other people, that increases even. And so one of the biggest benefits I've ever gotten to that whole thing, even more so than temporary housing, was my connection with Jen. And my very first connection with Miracle Friends didn't exactly work out the way we planned. She was a great person, but we never really connected constantly, but the moment Jen and I talked, I think the first day was a 45-minute conversation. I think it went even over an hour. And ever since then, it's been a weekly kind of thing for us. So prior to the program, I was in a position where I began to think, okay, what are my goals? And it was good to feel that way again. And that's what Jen helped me with. She provided me with the support to actually throw things back and forth with. She provided me with insight. Whenever I had questions about my own health, she provided me with guidance. She gave me books and things like that. So as our relationship got stronger, I also got stronger mentally, spiritually even. And that allowed me to actually focus on what was important. And that was providing for my daughter. And so before the Miracle Money program even was presented to me, I already set a goal for myself, and that one day soon, I'm going to be able to tell my daughter, if you ever needed somewhere to go to as a home, that I'll be there for you. And at the time I thought that wasn't something that was realistic until the program was presented to me. And ever since then, I've just been working hard to make sure that I kept that goal. And Jen has been there every step of the way. So has Kevin.
So Ray, what do you think has been the biggest impact of the Miracle Money program on helping you stabilize your life?
Well, before even the biggest impact, what it gave me during the process or during my journey was a sense of security that I was able to do it. I'm able to get to my goal once that time comes. And the biggest impact is this right here. I'm not unhoused. I have permanent housing here in Kansas. And that was totally through the Miracle Money program. And I'm happy. I'm comfortable. I'm able to focus on health. Just before I moved out here, I was able to do the one thing that I set my goal on, and that's to tell my daughter, hey, you know what? If things don't work out, or if you just need a place to stay, you're welcome here. This is your home too. And that by far is just, it was a blessing.
Thank you. And Kevin, turning back to you, for folks who are listening to the show, how can they get engaged in supporting the Miracle Money program or being a Miracle Friend?
Well, they can give Miracle Money if they'd like to continue the donations that we're giving to Ray and 14 others. So they can do that at miraclemessages.org/money. Learn more about Ray's story and make a donation. But we're also very much interested if you're not in a position to give financially or would prefer to start somewhere else. I get that. We would love to have you join us as Miracle Friends volunteers. So to do that, you can go to miraclemessages.org/friends or miraclefriends.org. Either one goes to the same place. And you fill out a 5-minute application with a little bit of background information, and then we'll match you with someone. I can't promise that they're going to be quite as extraordinary as Ray, but we will find someone for you. And I actually recently got matched with a unhoused friend as well. I've been wanting to be a participant in this program for a while, so it's been a joy to be matched now with Robert and have weekly conversations with him. I'm going to give him a call after this interview's over, actually.
Thank you. So turning back to you, Jen, and then same question for Ray as well. What has been some of your favorite moments of participating in the Miracle Friend and Miracle Money program?
One of my favorite moments has been getting to share Ray with the entire school community where his daughter went to high school. We do quarterly prayer services as an entire school since we're Catholic. And the last prayer service we did this year, the focus was intersectional solidarity. And I was invited to speak on that. And I really wanted to talk about Ray's and my relationship and how profound that was for both of us. And so got his daughter's permission, thank goodness. We wouldn't do anything without her feeling okay with it. And we were able to record a phone conversation that we had of us talking and then kind of play that StoryCorps style live while everybody was experiencing the prayer service. And when I said during our phone conversation, Ray, one of the most profound moments was realizing that your daughter is a student here at St. Ignatius. And I watched students' eyes just like bulge out, just they couldn't believe that one of their classmates had a parent who was unhoused. And after the prayer service, Ray's daughter was just very, very moved and so proud of her father. And people said our conversation and them hearing Ray and getting to know Ray was very profound. So I just had so much pride for Ray and who he was and his daughter and the gift that both of them are to our high school community in ways that our high school community really needs to learn and understand how much of a diverse community we have and how people we might not know are struggling in ways that we may never know, but it's real. So that was an incredible moment. And I just think as it relates to Miracle Money, when Ray was moving out to Kansas, he said, Jen, I'm not moving out there until I sign the lease and I pay up front 6 months worth of rent. And so I've done it. So now I feel like I can go. And he did not have to pay the first 6 months of rent, but he so wanted to commit to his roommate and to that stability that he made that be a factor before he moved, that he knew he could do that. So I was just in awe of his ability to save and his commitment to financial stability in his living environment.
Thank you. And Ray, favorite moment?
George, I have to say it's the same exact moment that Jen speaks of. But before I go into that, when Jen and I started talking, one of the things that I really had a hard time or difficulty doing was reconnecting with my daughter, because who wants to tell their daughter they're unhoused? Who wants to tell their daughter their situation? And that was something I was very uncomfortable with, but it was something that I wanted to do, didn't know how to do. And then Jen offered that opportunity. And I tell you, Jen and I, by that point, had a really strong relationship that I would do anything. But to do that, I was scared. I was nervous. I didn't want to put any shame to my daughter by having to open up to that. I'm glad she actually approved us doing that together. And once it happened, it just opened up a whole new world. We started talking more. My daughter and I went to lunch several times after that, up to a point where we're discussing now her future. And so that one moment right there was by far my favorite. And attending her graduation with Jen. I have so many favorite moments with her, but it all has to do with really Jen's ability to connect me with the things that I needed in my life. My daughter, some comfort or confidence in knowing that it'll be okay, whether it be health-wise or whether it be housing-wise. The confidence that I got there. And then the guidance. I wanted to do it right. And without Jen, I wouldn't have been able to have done it the right way. And without Miracle Money, I wouldn't have been able to have the resources to do it the right way. So here I am.
Thank you. Really wonderful moments there. So final question for everyone. I'm going to start with you, Kevin. What are some of the positive things that you think could come out of the Miracle Money program to support our unhoused community members? I know this is a pilot, but I also know that Miracle Messages always takes a long view, if you will, on trying to solve a problem that's been around for decades. But what are some of the positive things that you think could come out of it?
Well, we take a long view in that we're very values driven and try to meet our unhoused neighbors where they're at and see people who are experiencing homelessness not as problems to be solved, but people to be loved. So there's a lot of theory, concepts, and values there. But in a lot of ways, we're a very pragmatic organization. We started every service by basically talking to our unhoused neighbors and listening to what they had to say. And whether it was a desire to reconnect to loved ones because of shame, embarrassment, fear, digital literacy, some of the issues that Ray described, whether it's feeling like, relational poverty is a form of poverty and my family's part of the problem, not part of the solution. How can I have social supports? That's where the buddy system came in. And then with the Miracle Money program, really listening and hearing the need for small amounts of cash and the desire of our community members to give them that support. We've now seen 1 out of every 3 recipients of Miracle Money get housed as a direct result of $500 a month. That to me is extraordinary. So housing people and helping them rebuild relationships is the work of Miracle Messages. What I'm looking at as next steps is we don't want a good thing to end. And obviously a relationship like Jen and Ray have is timeless. I have no doubt that if we turned off the switch today on Miracle Friends program, even Miracle Messages, their friendship would persist. And I think there's more people out there like Jen and more people out there like Ray who are extraordinary and also frustrated by this issue and the disconnectedness we all feel around this issue and the shame and the kind of it's in the closet. And so whatever we can do as an organization to, on one side of the spectrum, because it's all part of the same continuum, but on one side of the spectrum, people who are experiencing housing stability, give them an opportunity to be volunteers, to make donations, to be a friend. And then for our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness at this moment in life, which Ray is no longer. right? Ray, you are no longer a person experiencing homelessness. You are on the housing security side of the spectrum. And an identity like that should be seen as fluid as I've just described it, because it's not an us versus them. It's all of us. We're all in it together. And I believe that there are many more unhoused neighbors who could benefit from having a friend, from reconnecting with loved ones, or from getting $500 a month as a trust-based income. So that's what we're trying to do, is expand those service offerings in the Bay Area and around the country.
Thank you. And Jen, same question. What are some of the good things that you think could come out of both the Miracle Friends and Miracle Money program to help other unhoused folks?
I kind of echo some of the things that Kevin said about the importance of having relationships between housed and unhoused, because like I mentioned with Ray before, I mean, we have so much in common and similar values and ways that we can both give advice and guide each other. And I think sometimes people make the assumption that if someone is unhoused, there's nothing in common with someone who's housed. And that's a real misnomer, because I feel like we're all ultimately one paycheck away from being unhoused, or if our health takes a turn. I mean, there's so much that can cause those of us that are housed to be in similar situations to those that are unhoused. And so having that relationship, knowing that someone needs to be treated with more dignity than they are going about their day when they're unhoused. Relationships create dignity. And when you know someone's name, when you know something about them, that makes them feel seen and heard and loved. And so Miracle Friends does that, made sure that there's at least one person in this person's life that sees and hears and loves them. And I think that just that does so much to change the trajectory of what their life path might have been. When you feel cared for by someone, you then start caring for yourself in ways that maybe were difficult to do when you're isolated and alone. And so Miracle Money is an extension of that. You get the relationship going with Miracle Friends, you get the self-esteem built, you get the confidence built, so that then when the money starts to come, decisions are made that are really rooted in that self-care and self-love that's been shown to be able to meet the needs that the unhoused person has, that when you're just a number, or when people just pass you by and don't really see you and know who you really are, different choices might be made. But when there's that relationship and that foundation and somebody who's walking that path with you, and then you get a little bit of money on top of that to empower you to be able to take action on the decisions you're now wanting to start to make for yourself, I think that's huge.
Thank you. And then Ray?
George, I think I want to say that the greatest value or the greatest gift that I received from being part of this program wasn't the money. It was really the fact that I felt like I meant something again, that I'm able to think about the future. I'm able to think about what to do the next day that can be positive. There's no value like feeling like somebody cares. And the friendship that I've developed with Jen is by far the one thing that I will walk away with this. And I know it's going to go on forever, Jen, but that by far, I think, is the greatest blessing I've received from all of this. When you're unhoused and you're amongst unhoused people, it's not the same. You don't have the same goals, or you don't talk to each other in the same way where you push each other towards something better. You're somewhat stuck in a rut. And friendship, the connection that Miracle Friends provided me, gets you out of that rut. And working your way through it with someone who obviously cares, to listen, to think, to provide information, to be your friend is the greatest gift. And of course, like Jen said, to be able to be provided with the means to achieve your goals after that. That was just something I didn't need, but I do appreciate. I love you guys.
Thank you. Really great insights. Thank you, Kevin, Jen, and Ray, for sharing both Miracle Messages and the impact of the Miracle Money program on your lives. We'll make sure that listeners have your contact information, website, and social media so they can follow both Miracle Messages and the Miracle Money pilot program. And the audience can support both the Miracle Friend and Miracle Money programs and get engaged in supporting Miracle Messages' mission to provide support for our fellow unhoused community members. So please stay safe and healthy as we work our way through this brand new pseudo-normalcy of reopening.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
Love you guys.
That's it for this episode of Voices of the Community. You've been listening to the voices of the founder and CEO of Miracle Messages, Kevin Adler, and Miracle Messages Friend Program volunteer, Jen Roy, along with Miracle Money Program participant, Ray. To find out more about Miracle Messages and to sign up to become a Miracle Friend, go to miraclemessages.org. And to participate in the Miracle Money Fund, go to miraclemessages.org/money. The pandemic has exposed how fragile the economic health is of most American households, especially our Black and brown households. City of Stockton Mayor Michael Tubbs was the first government leader to believe in his community members and created a privately funded universal basic income pilot called the Stockton Economic Empowerment Demonstration. The data from the 2019 pilot showed that providing residents $500 per month that they spend on food, rent, utilities, and car repairs, for example, helps stabilize their households. For more background on Mayor Tubbs and the pilot, please go to georgecoster.com and click on Voices of the Community, and then click on Stockton's Rise from Bankruptcy series and listen to episode 12. Mayor Tubbs has gone on to create the Mayors for Guaranteed Income program, with mayors from California to Georgia signing on to the program. Since Tubbs' Stockton experiment, Oakland, Marin County, and San Francisco, along with Santa Clara County, started 1 to 2 year universal basic income programs. The pilot programs provide participants between $500 to $1,000 guaranteed every month with no strings attached. Most of these initial pilots, like Tubbs' Stockton pilot, are being funded by private donations. On July 15th, California lawmakers approved the nation's first state-funded guaranteed income program that once Governor Newsom signs the bill, cities and counties can apply for funding to support a current pilot or a new pilot from the $35 million fund. Please tune in to KSFP 102.5 FM on July 29th at 8:30 a.m. for next week's show, where we continue on our theme about unhoused community members, and we introduce you to voices from the Coalition on Homeless and the publisher of Street Sheet. We hope that you enjoyed the insights, points of view, and personal stories from the voices of changemakers and their nonprofits and small businesses featured in this series. To find out more and get engaged with the nonprofits, small businesses, and staff members featured in the series, please go to my website, georgecoster.com, and click on Voices of the Community to find links to the extended versions of these interviews and to listen to the entire series. After listening to these stories, we hope that you will consider making a donation and volunteering to provide a hand up to your fellow community members. I want to thank my associate producer, Eric Estrada, and Casey Nance at Citron Studios, along with the wonderful crew at the San Francisco Public Press and KSFP. Voices of the Community is a member of Intersection for the Arts, which allows us to offer you a tax deduction for your contributions. Please go to georgecoster.com and click on the donate link to make a donation to help us provide future shows just like this one. While you're on our website, you can enjoy our archived past shows, which feature community voices working on solutions to critical issues facing Northern California communities. And you can sign up for our newsletter to find out more about future shows, as well as shows and events from the organizations that are included in our episodes. Take us along on your next COVID walk by subscribing to Voices of the Community on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at George Coster, and we'd love to hear from you with feedback and show ideas, so send us an email to george@georgecoster.com. I'm George Coster in San Francisco, and thank you for listening.